Hey guys, it's Chappie. How y'all doing? Feels a little weird. I'm not gonna lie. It's Thursday night, not Friday night. So I'm gonna do Thursday night shows during baseball season. But I thought with the end of the fantasy football season, and of course fantasy playoffs are coming up. So it's not like we're not gonna talk about that. Trust me, we'll talk about that plenty. We'll talk about football in the off season as well. But Chappie baseball making its season debut tonight. Um, Thursday nights at 8. I plan on coming to you and talking some baseball. I'm going to introduce a new show this week, and I've been trying to collaborate, getting the second person together for quite a while. One of my buddies is going to jump on. We're going to do this together. RC tonight at 10. The Other Angle with Chappie and RC. So make sure you come back. That's going to be football hot stove predominantly. We're going to talk about some other sports stuff here and there, but mainly about NFL offseason stuff. So make sure you join me. Come back again and join me at 10 o'clock for The Other Angle with Chappie and RC. So, but, again, we're going to talk some baseball tonight. We're going to ease into it. There was some big news today, so I'll definitely talk about that. But, really, this is kind of an unprecedented year in that, well, in a lot of ways, we won't get into that, but in that we're coming off an off season where there was no minor league ball, there was no full season. There's some pretty distinct rules changes, and it kind of makes it tough to gauge where these players are and their development, right? So how are we going to combat that? How are we going to, those of you guys that have listened to me for a while now, that you're always kind of going to try and come up with a strategy, and that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to start talking about some guys that we want to, how some of these trades and signings are going to impact teams, but then also like how are we going to approach this season, and what are some things that we're going to look for, and where do we go for some of our cheat points that maybe some other folks won't take the time to study as deeply as you will, right? Because that's what fantasy baseball is really all about. It's taking advantage of your competition and being able to out strategize them. So tonight we're going to talk about some movement. Obviously it being this early, you really want to talk about what's gone on early on. There was a big trade today. Let's talk about it. So first off, thanks to Draft for Upside. These guys really appreciate them bringing me on. Got a great new spiffy upgraded StreamYard format, and a great group of guys to work with. If you haven't had a chance to go out and see Draft for Upside, I definitely suggest you do that. First, the Gold with Lou Landers as well is a very good show. Lou's been doing this forever and does a great job as well. So really excited to be networked out with those guys, and a lot of great content. Make sure you tune into Draft for Upside for all that content. But the trade today, and it's interesting because some big names on both sides, really. I thought the Indians did pretty well for themselves, all things considered. Yeah, they had to give up Carlos Carrasco, and that hurt probably more than most teams are going to be willing to, or most people will be willing to admit. And, Carrasco is one of those guys. He's been through the ringer, right? He's seen all his friends leave. He's kind of like that last guy left on that really great staff. They had in 2016 when they played the Cubs anyway. So, it's kind of like the passing of the torch to these new guys. The Indians have done a great job of developing their pitchers. But Carrasco is one of those guys that had kind of become a fan favorite in Cleveland, and it's going to be different seeing him wear a different team's jersey. The Mets, man, they're all in. They're all in. With this move, they get two viable pieces to a championship run, and I look for them to spend more. But those of you guys that know me know I'm all about the prospects and looking at these guys that they got back. So we'll do that as well. But first, let's talk about the Mets lineup now, and the fact that you could go ahead and project Lindor to be a real force at the top of that lineup. um, protected by names like Conforto and Smith and Davis and Alonso. Um, it really McNeil. It really does set the table for a really prolific offense for the Mets. And quite honestly, I'll be interested to see what happens with him running. So, you know, the Mets lineup should be really formidable. And you put Carlos Carrasco in there to go with, some of those other pitchers that they have. They've already re-signed Marcus Stroman, um, obviously DeGrom, and some of those other guys. Really formidable pitching staff. The Mets are Steve Cohen wants to make a big splash in year one of his ownership there. So you're talking about a guy in Lindor who's had 20 homers in each of his last 3 full seasons, 100 runs in each of his last 3 full seasons. Well, a 99, and has really last year everybody says he had a bad year. Everybody knows allowed to go project out. So you project his numbers out last year. It's projected 22 homers and 17 stolen bases. And that's a bad year for Lindor. I look for him to rebound this year, especially playing. Now I know it's tough to change leagues. It's tough to change divisions. But I think in this instance, going from the AL to the now that said, he's going to have to face Washington and their pitchers, Scherzer and Corbin and those guys. He's going to have to face the Braves and those pitchers. He's going to have to face. I mean, there's some good pitching in that division. But the Marlins have holes. The Braves have had holes. The Nationals have had holes in the rotations. And that's where players like Lindor really clean up. So I think this is a really good move for both teams, really. I mean, it was needed. We've been talking about this for a couple years. Lindor getting traded off. It just so happens that this is the year. Now, for the Indians, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Anytime you can get 2 young major league talents and then 2 real high recent draft pick players, I think you're doing well, right? So Ahmed Rosario has been one of those guys. He's never really quite fit in. It's kind of puzzling to me that Jimenez was in there too. I think both of them can play. I know both of them can play. I think the Indians will probably try and make that their middle infield, from now on, and just develop those guys because they both have good speed, formidable power, not great power, but formidable power. They're going to be on base guys. Both of those guys are going to be good major league ball players. Josh Wolf, 53rd overall pick in 2019. 5 starts, 8 Ks, and only 12 innings pitched. But again, this is what I'm talking about. Why this is going to be weird, right? You don't have minor league statistics to look at. Isaiah Green has no statistics. But what we know is he's the 69th overall player in 2020 picked. Baseball America ranked him 49th overall. He's a speed defense guy. So they got 2 really high draft picks from the last couple years. In addition to Rosario and Jimenez. It's not a bad get back for the Indians. Especially when you can let those players. Ahmed Rosario is going to be what he's going to be at the major league level, and it'll be okay. It wasn't with him. It'll be okay because I imagine Jimenez plays short, and Rosario plays second. That's how I look at it. I think Rosario obviously is a little bit more seasoned. He's a little bit more mature. But Jimenez definitely has the better talent. So I look for him to play shortstop. I look for Rosario to hit higher in the lineup. But I look for Jimenez to run more, oddly enough. Should be an interesting dynamic for the Indians. It really should. And I think it'll work out. Not this year, but in a couple. Chap's Fantasy Chat, Thursday nights at 8. The Other Angle with Chappie and RC, Thursday nights at 10. It's interesting. The transition from football to baseball is rather odd, especially and again, we'll be talking football at 10. Football's still going on. I understand, but baseball is kind of I always harken back to the George Carlin bit between the differences of football and baseball. Baseball's in a field. Football's on a, I'm butchering. Anyway, it's funny. You should check it out. Baseball's fun to analyze. So baseball's more of a cerebral game. And again, welcome, Facebook user. Who are you? Let me know. That's all it shows up as. I'll tell you, sometimes this technology is great, and having the souped up version of StreamYard's awesome, but it still can't put the username in there until you go and sign in. But anyway, welcome. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for commenting. Hey, Vic, what's up, brother? And I'll tell you, baseball's fun because it's really, Vic knows this. I'm really an analyst guy, so I really love looking at the numbers. You can trend out so much in baseball just by understanding guys' natural ascent, right? So again, it's different this year. I'm always a prospect hawk. I'm always wanting to have the next big thing. That's what I enjoy doing. So I'm always looking at that. This year's different. We didn't have any minor league ball necessarily last year, and it's going to be harder to assess some of that talent. So how are we going to do it? And that's the important thing. We start taking away like where we're going with this ship, right? Because baseball's more like a cruiser, right? You kind of have to lean into where you're going, and in order to build your case for how you want to build your team, prepare for your draft, however you want to look at this, you have to put in mind what you want to accomplish. So again, stats are truncated. There's only 60 games last year. People didn't have time necessarily to work out of statistics, to work out of slumps rather, right? You didn't have this long drawn, and it's not long and drawn out. It's the right amount, but some players' statistics don't look right? And that's okay. Some of them don't look right and aren't right because something's changed, and that's different. That's not okay. So for me, moving forward, we have to start identifying, is this ascension real? Is this descension real? And identifying the two players based off of, body of work, based off of, potential and what you're hearing and what you're, really have to scout this. And basically that's what you're doing here, right? So it's one of those things. That's what I'm talking about, Vic. That's some pretty spiffy stuff there, right? putting up the comments. I like that. Thanks to Jeff for Upside, because that's the upgraded version there. Pretty cool shit. So with no minor league system, you have to understand that a guy like, and it's funny, I talked to a couple guys not so long ago. I made a trade. I just joined this dynasty league with Lou, and I made a trade in that league. And I gave first off, when you inherit a team, You want to put your own mark on it. Now, I'm going to play my hand a little bit here. Everybody that's been in any league that I'm in or just listen to me any at all knows I'm a Nick Lodolo fan. I don't like to beat around the bush with trades. I don't like doing the 6 for 5, and I want who I want. Give me a reasonable trade, and I'll take it. So in this league, obviously, it's a minor league team. Lodolo was taken. Someone already had him. So I went and I asked him. I mean, flat out, I'm like, hey, I want Lodolo. Who do you want? I'm not, in different circumstances, I would have gone about it differently. But I'm not interested in getting a whole, like I said, I straight to the point. So he came right out and he said he said he wanted Madrigal and Grisham and a pick. Like, you're crazy, no way. So I walked away. We didn't talk for like 2 weeks. So he came back out again. Sent him another thing. What do you want for Lodolo? Grisham and Madrigal. Get out of here. Hour later, I could do one of the two. Okay. So we ended up, I gave up Trent Grisham to get Nick Lodolo. And the point of this story is why this is important. When you're in baseball, it's different from football in that if you have an idea of who you want, you could be pretty straightforward in going to get it. Bad trades happen all the time in baseball that still end up working out pretty well because there's such an influx of players. So maybe you have an influx of – so, for instance, this team I have has a bunch of – actually, it's really loaded, but has a bunch of outfielders. He's actually – the team, the owner prior to me actually was playing guys who I want in the infield that I want to move out to the outfield and have that flexibility in the outfield. So I thought I had a strength there and I could make that move. And I did it. So, the lack of minor league season is going to develop. It's going to affect different minor leaguers differently too, right? A guy like Lodolo isn't going to be affected as greatly as a guy like, say, Grayson Rodriguez. High school Texas pitcher, 19 years old, had the whole season off last year. Yeah, I'm sure he pitched in camp, whatever it is, but it's not the same. It's not the same. They're going to affect these players differently. So it'll be interesting to see how that lines up. Don't forget to stick around, come back at 10. The other angle, show debut, Chappie and RC. Talk some football hot stove. Tonight we're going to talk about the hot seat, coaches getting fired, who the candidates are to replace them, what the good situations are. Got good stuff going on tonight with Randall and I. Chappie and RC, the other angle. Tonight at 10. So what are we going to talk about? How are we going to build this foundation? Well, really this early in the season, you got to look at what's going on, right? And that trade, again, that we just talked about is huge, obviously. But prior to that, there have been a few, not many, but a few moves made. A lot of them by one team. Friday show is off. I moved to Thursday. Tonight is Randall and I, RC and I, 10 o'clock. Be there, Vic. That's you. So we talked about the Mets. We talked about Cleveland. Let's talk about San Diego. Yu Darvish and Blake Snell to go with Chris Paddock and Denelson Lamet. That is one heck of a rotation. And it's interesting. It tells you some things. First off, it tells you they're getting sick of being beaten around by the Dodgers. That's a rotation that competes all year long, barring they stay healthy, with the defending World Series champs. Truly three aces. Number two, what it tells you. Don't look for Mackenzie Gore before the All-Star break. As aggressive as they've been with some of these other prospects, and they've been aggressive. They were aggressive with Paddock. They were aggressive with Tatis. They were aggressive with Grisham, even though they got him in a trade. They're going to use kid gloves with the best pitching prospect in baseball. So, and you know, he could be a real factor down the stretch, because if he comes in and it takes the league a time through the rotation being the league to figure him out, he could be dominant in the playoffs. He could really be that wild card when it comes down to playoff time. So I think it's a great tactical move for them to go out and make those trades. The best part about it, they didn't really give up that much. Not in the way of their upper development prospects. Tampa's so deep. San Diego's so deep, rather, that they could, well, so is Tampa. That's another story for another day. That they can go and give up their 9th and 10th prospect. And that's a get for a lot of these teams. So, first off, Luis Patino, Frankie Mejia, both good ball players. Mejia's going to get a full-time chance. He's going to get his at-bats. He's going to get a chance to catch, I would imagine. Patino's probably going to be either an opener or a middle relief guy. Tampa loves to use those. But either way, both of those guys can be impactful. And I'll tell you right now, I trust what Kevin Cash does. You know, Snell's 1 year removed, maybe 2 years removed from not being very good, from having a really bad year. Same thing with Darvish. San Diego's taking on a fair amount of risk with these guys. But if you really look at it, they didn't give up C.J. Abrams. They didn't give up Mackenzie Gore. They didn't give up their best catching prospect. I think it's Campusano. They did pretty darn well in both of those trades. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was ticked off. Being a Cubs fan, I was ticked off when I first heard about the trade. But then I started thinking about it. So listening to Jed Hoyer the other week, it was a couple days ago, I think. He's talking about the Cubs being a big market team. And sometimes you have to break up the nucleus in order to shake things up, was basically the gist of his conversation. But then I started thinking about it. If you know you can't win with this team, why wouldn't you break it up? Break it up, but then go back out and sign. What's stopping? The Cubs have a large bankroll. What's stopping the Cubs from going out and signing Didi Gregorius, James Paxton, and Justin Turner? All available. Can all be had at a pretty good price. Or We want to go another direction? How about Marcus Semien, Jake Odorizzi, and Michael Brantley? There's a ton of guys out there. And if you've determined that you can't win with the core that you have, as a Cubs fan, I'm fine with that. You're probably right, if we're just being honest. But don't go out and put a subpar team out there in the city of Chicago. Go out and put some players on the field that maybe if you don't do well, maybe if you don't. That's the other thing. The NL Central's not full of competition. So go out and spend a little bit of money. Bring you in a Gregorius type player. Bring you in an Odorizzi. Bring you in a, James Paxton. And then if you're not competing at the trade deadline, further bolster your system. I'm fine with the Cubs selling off as long as they then go out and buy and put a good team on the field. They don't need to win it all, but they should compete in this division because the division isn't very good, guys. How about the White Sox? Lance Lynn, really underrated pitcher. I'll tell you. So, since May 10th, 2019, Lance Lynn has started 39 games. 251 innings, 0.2 innings, 299 Ks, a 3.22 ERA, and a 1.11 whip. He's completed 6 innings in 32 of his 39 starts, and he's owed just $9.3 million this year. What a great get for the White Sox. And I'll tell you, it really fits in well with some of those other young pitchers that they have. And his work ethic, his approach, his professional approach to the game is going to help the guys on that staff. It's going to help the young pitchers out. Started using a sinker baller, four-seamer, creates more strikeouts. 5th place in the Cy Young Award last year, 2019. 6th place last year. Led baseball in innings and ranked 6th in strikeouts over the last 2 seasons. It truly is a great sign for the White Sox. It really makes them contenders. The Angels, Raciel Iglesias should be a good fit there. Joe Madden will use him well. I'll tell you, the Angels are a dark horse this year. Ohtani's had some time to get rested up, healed up. Rendon, there's talk of Wilson Contreras coming over. They're going to spend out there. Really like what they're doing. The Wilson Contreras to the Angels thing to me is really appealing. Contreras is my favorite Cub. Contreras and Baez are my 2 favorite Cubs. And, losing him would really suck. But if he's going to go anywhere, I'd love to see it be the Angels. Just the reuniting between he and Joe Madden would be great. It's funny because they're trying to do comps between actually last year the catchers for the Angels did pretty well. Max Stassi, 278, 7 homers, 12 runs, 20 RBIs. So the difference between a Max Stassi and a Wilson Contreras, in my opinion, is Wilson Contreras can hit in the middle of that lineup every day of the week. Whereas Max Stassi has to hit at the bottom of the lineup. He doesn't have the bat potential that Contreras has. Contreras is also familiar with playing the field. He's played in the outfield. He's played first base. And we all know that Madden likes to move his guys around. Keeping his legs fresh, keep him in the lineup would be a good move there for him. I have mixed feelings about Madden. I really like the way he's a cerebral coach. He's unconventional. I fought what happened with the Cubs to Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer directly. Now, I don't know. It could be more Theo Epstein. I'm willing to give Jed Hoyer on his own an opportunity. I think stripping it down pretty bare is the way they got to do it if they want to compete. But they made a bunch of bad trades. And I put that squarely on Theo Epstein. So we'll see what happens with Hoyer. But I'm just thinking the middle of that lineup in LA. Trout, Rendon, Contreras, Ohtani, Upton. Damn, that's formidable. And that's the other part. The Angels got money. They're not going to be afraid to spend. I'm assuming you're talking about Theo. So, just real quick before I get off here, I just want to talk a little bit about Cubs perspective. At first glance, the trade for Darvish, I was devastated. It still doesn't sit real well, especially because you gave up Caratini as well. So here's what you get in that trade. You get 4 lottery tickets. You get 4 high upside guys that you don't really know a whole lot about. I expect a couple of them. The Canadian power hitter, I don't have the information from me, so again, it's early, right? We're not into that yet. But the young shortstop looks good. The Canadian outfielder's got homer speed potential, but they don't know if he can hit. That's not, terribly comforting. But the point of it is they're all projected out 2023, 2024. And that's okay. It gives you a window into when the Cubs want to compete again. Which is why I say I'm fine with that if you go out and spend money in the market. There's no reason they can't go out and bring some competent players in that are close to the same skill level as the guys you let go. That's okay. Just sitting on bad players isn't. What the Pirates have done for the last 15 years isn't. We'll talk about them another day. So, real quick before we get off of here, make sure you come back at 10. The other angle, Chappie and RC. Thursday nights at 8 now for Chappie Baseball. Next week, we'll start getting into, we'll talk about some current events, but we're going to start getting into how we approach a draft. And how we approach early drafts, where some opportunities are that we can take advantage of. It's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what pans out. Hell, we don't even really know the rules yet. Like I think Vic's saying here. We don't know if they're going to start on time. So Really, all we can do in the current is look at these free agents and keep up with prospect news. So until next time, that's what I'll be doing. We'll be formulating some plans for how we're going to draft our teams, and have fun doing it. So till an hour and 25 minutes from now, Chap's Fantasy Chat again. Durf, what's up, brother? Begin again. Make sure and join us on Thursday nights at 8. Join me in RC tonight at 10. Talk some football. Chap's Fantasy Chat. Draft for upside. Love y'all guys. Take care. Bye.